One second. All right, we're live. Okay. So, let's see. Today is Srimati Radharani's appearance day, and in North Carolina, and they're having a program in the temple. And I encourage anyone who's here in North Carolina to attend the program in the temple rather than attend the short class that I'm going to be giving. I'm not in the temple because I'm recuperating from my operation. For those of you who want to know the status, I'm doing fine. It's just pretty much exhausted and some pain, but everything is going well. And so I wanted to speak a little bit about Srimati Radharani. I did this morning in class here, and that's available on Facebook. It's available on my YouTube channel if you want to see that class. And we're going to give a little bit different class this evening. Probably a shorter class because of my the stamina, my physical stamina, that I'm not really able to give a full class right now. And then I'm going to probably go to the temple in a little while just to participate in the Abhishek, but first we're going to chant, and hopefully I'm going to be able to play the guitar, because I haven't played the guitar in days. But as I said, we learn from our experiences with this material body. So we're going to chant Radhastami, and a little slowly today because I am recuperating. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite, Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite, Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite, Taruni Mandala Maite, Ranhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite, Ranhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite, Damodharati Vardhana Veshe, Adi Niskuta Vrinda Vipineshe, Damodarati Vardhana Veshe, Adi Niskuta Vrinda Vipineshe, Ranhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite, Hey Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite, Vishabhanutani Navashashi Leke, Lalita Saki Guna Ramita Vishake, Vishabhanutani Navashashi Leke, Lalita Saki Guna Ramita Vishake, Ranhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite, Ranhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite, Karunam Kurumai Karuna Bharate, Sanaka Sanatana Varita Charite, Puru Mai Karuna Bharate, Sanaka Sanatana Varnita Charite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhavataite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhavataite Gokula Taruni Mandala Maite Gokula Taruni Mandala Maite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhavataite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhavataite Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravidikacharya all Sutera Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Chadanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Mahārishila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopinath Sayam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuram Ki Jai Jagadasami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Srimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namah Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatcha Deja Tarni Somagana Timidanda Shah Gananjana Shalakya Chakshuram Meditam Yena Tasmai Shigave Namaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. So I'm going to read the translation to this poem. O Radha, all glory is unto you. All glory is unto you, beloved of Madhava, object of worship for all the young girls of Gokula. You dress yourself in such a way as to increase Lord Damodar's love and attachment for you. You are the controller of Vrindavan, the pleasure groves of Lord Hari. You are a new moon arisen from the ocean of King Vrishabhanu. You are the friend of Lalita, and your wonderful qualities, friendliness, kindness, and faithfulness to Krishna, endear you to Vishaka. You are an ocean of compassion, and your divine characteristics are described by the four Kumaras, Sanaka, Sanatan, Sananda, and Sanat Kumar. O Radha, please be merciful to me. So today we are celebrating Radhastami, and I'd like to wish everybody a happy Radhastami. And we're going to be speaking a little bit about Srimati Radharani. I'm not able to give the temple class. Someone else is giving the temple class because of my recovery, which is happening rapidly, so don't worry about that. So we're going to, so let's speak about Srimati Radharani. So, first of all, let's try to understand Radharani's ontological position. Radharani, of course, is the Shakti of Krishna. In fact, she's called the Adi Shakti. Adi Shakti means the original Shakti from which or from whom all the other Shaktis expand. So, of course, we have Radharani, and she expands as Lalita and Vishaka. And then from there, the other gopis. And from there, you have the wives of Krishna in Dwarka. And from there, you have the Lakshmis. Lakshmi expands. And then, of course, there's also the expansion, which I didn't mention, is Yogamaya, who's the internal potency of the Lord. And Radharani specifically is in charge of the pleasure potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why do we say pleasure potency? Because Krishna has a desire to enjoy. And he doesn't want to enjoy materially, obviously, because he has no material body. It's not like us that we want to enjoy materially in two different ways. I mean, in the subtle way, which is with our mind, or we want to enjoy with the senses. Manakshashtani indriyani, prakriti shtani karshati, as Krishna says in the Gita. Mame bhangsa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanan. Manakshashtani indriyani prakriti shtani karshati. That we are Krishna's parts and parcels, and we're trying to enjoy in this material world, manakshashtani indriya, with the five senses, which include the mind. But Krishna, what does Krishna enjoy? He's not lacking anything. Oops, I don't want to see this message from the temple or anything like. He's not lacking anything. So what does Krishna enjoy? Krishna enjoys loving exchanges. Like sometimes people who are not familiar with Krishna consciousness or not very adept in spiritual life will say that God is love. Now to me that doesn't make any sense, because to have love, you need Vishaya and Ashraya. That's technical words. You need the lover and beloved. So Krishna is the Vishaya, and the living entities, and Srimati Radharani, of course, is the Ashraya, and all the living entities who love Krishna are also Ashraya. And Ashraya means that they have the love, and Krishna is the enjoyer of that love. Now sometimes Krishna becomes the Ashraya and the living entities the Vishaya, because Krishna wants to give pleasure to his devotees. In fact, there's this competition between Krishna and his devotees, who can please the other one the most. Krishna's trying to satisfy his devotees, and the devotee is trying to satisfy Krishna. And both of them are doing this in a causeless way, as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Haitukiya Pratiyata, that the love for Krishna, Savai Pungsam Paradharma Yata Bhakti and Hoksaje, Haitukiya Pratiyata, has no material cause and it does not stop at any moment. And also Krishna's love for us has no material cause, because he doesn't need us. We need him, but he doesn't need us. So Radharani's love, which is the topmost love, there's no cause for it, it's just love. So we say God is love. That doesn't mean anything, but God is loving, and the devotees are loving. And love means Haitaki Pratiyata Yatma Suprasidate, or as described by Shri Rupa Goswami, that Anyabi Lashata Shunyam Dhyana Karmana Vritam Anukulyena Krishna Anushilan Bhaktirutamam. That pure love means not to have any self-centered desire, whether it's subtle or gross, but simply the desire to please the beloved and do what the beloved wants, and do it in such a way that you're doing it out of love. It's not like forced, that, oh, I got to serve Krishna, I got to wake up early in the morning, I got to chant my rounds, but I'm doing it out of love. And so Radharani, everything she does is out of love. Even when apparently Radharani is angry with Krishna, and she refuses to see Krishna. There's so many stories like that, especially the stories told by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, when Krishna deliberately makes Radharani angry. But that anger that Radharani manifests, which is called man in Sanskrit, that anger is done to give Krishna pleasure. Because that's the pleasure in exchange of material, and not material, but loving exchanges, that there is variety. In loving exchanges, if everything is just like a big pasted smile on your face, like those smile buttons or whatever, uh, that's not happiness. Real happiness, real happiness is actually when there's variety in loving exchanges, and it goes up and down, just like a roller coaster. So that's the real happiness in loving exchanges. So anyway, Radharani is simply giving pleasure to Krishna, and she's Krishna's Shakti. Of course, Krishna has unlimited Shaktis, but Radharani is the original Shakti from which all the other Shaktis come, which we mentioned before. So I want to quote a verse, several verses about Radharani, which is actually really nice, which we quoted also this morning. This is from the Brahma Samhita. Nanda Chimaya Ras Pratipavitavi Ya Eva Nija Rupatiya Kalabi Galoka Vinivashati Akilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So actually I'm going to give my own translation of this, if that's all right. That Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. He's always in Vrindavan. And although apparently in his pastimes it appears that he's leaving Vrindavan to go to Mathura, he always stays in Vrindavan in his unmanifest form. Even today, Krishna is there. You just can't see him. You can feel his presence, but you can't see him. So in the same way, Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. And so this prayer by Lord Brahma that we just cited says that, of course, I worship Govinda, the original Lord who resides always in Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan, with Radharani, who resembles him. In one sense, we say, Radha and Krishna are one, but for the pleasure, they divided themselves in two. So, what does that mean exactly? That means that eternally, Radha and Krishna, not at some point in time, that Krishna decided, I want Radharani, and he made Radharani, or he divided himself to become Radharani, because there's no question of that. Radha and Krishna, the relationship is eternal. Radharani is always there, Krishna is always there. So it means that Krishna is the energetic, and Radharani is the energy. So in that sense, they're one. Just like the example given, the rough metaphor given by Srila Prabhupada is like the sun and the sunshine. Sun and the sunshine are one. You can't have the sunshine without the sun, and you can't have the sun without sunshine. They're both connected. You can't have one without the other. So Radha resembles Krishna's spiritual figure, and she is the manifestation. I believe the translation they give usually is embodiment, but the manifestation of the ecstatic Shakti, ecstatic potency of the Lord. And she manifests, according to this verse, 64 qualities, artistic qualities. And she does all this. Of course, there's many lists of Radharani's qualities, one of which I'm going to mention in a second. And she does all this in the company of all of her associates, who are called Sakis, who are her expansions, such as Lalita, Vishaka, and especially the 8 Sakis. We're not talking about Shaktis, different. These are Sakis. Sakis means friends, lady friends of Radharani. Okay? And they engage with Krishna and with serving Radharani to develop something called ras. Ras means spiritual taste. Now, what is ras? Of course, Prabhupada sometimes translates the word ras as a mellow. Now, that's hard for us to understand. At least in America, I don't know what mellow means, except for someone's very peaceful. But mellow basically means the taste or experience you get from something. So, according to Srila Rupa Goswami, this taste or mellow you get, or one gets, or Radharani gets in relationship to Krishna, is a combination of different emotions. Just like the taste you get from a particular type of food is a combination of different sub-tastes or feelings. Let's say feelings rather than tastes or whatever. Like if I take, let's say, something that I like, because my diet's really restricted right now. So if I were, that's kind of funny. So if I were to take, let's say, a bagel or something like that, then there'd be the salty taste, the taste of the wheat, there's different tastes, and all those tastes would be the rasa of eating the bagel. So the rasa that's experienced by the devotees, and specifically by Srimati Radharani, is composed of all these bhavas. And bhavas means emotions, and we're not going to get into all the details. It's vibhava, anubhava, sanchari bhava, sthai bhava, and of course permeated by the astika bhavas, the eightfold bhavas that come in because one is in touch with the Vishuddha Sattva. So anyway, so that's Radharani's position. She's always trying to please Krishna. And we're going to read a little bit from the Chaitanya Charitamrita in a second to demonstrate her mood. But as far as our mood in serving, we should be crying out for her mercy. Now, why should we cry out for Radharani's mercy? The reason is that she is controlling Krishna. I mentioned that's one of the qualities of Srimati Radharani. She always keeps Krishna under her control. Krishna cannot be controlled by anything other than devotion. Even Rupa Goswami mentions in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that one of the qualities of pure devotion is the devotee is able to control Krishna or attract Krishna by his or her devotion. So Radharani is certainly able to control Krishna. And so we cry out to Radharani to please let us engage in Krishna's service. That's the Maha Mantra. And Maha Mantra that we chant, the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, first starts with Radharani's name. And not only does it start with Radharani's name, Hare, it's Radharani's name in what we call, linguistically, in the vocative form. And it means calling out. In other words, hey, oh, Radharani. Does everyone understand that? Calling out. Oh, Radharani. Oh, Radharani. Just like the Goswamis, they pray in separation in the same way. Hey, Radhe, Braja Devake. Hey, Nanda Shuno Kuta. In separation, they're crying out to Radharani's name. Radhe also is vocative. Hey, Radhe, Braja Devake. The goddess of Vrindavan. And Cha Lalite Lalita. Hey, Nanda Shuno Kuta. And so, Nanda Maharaj's son. So the Goswamis of Vrindavan have this mood. Of course, that's one of the prayers of these 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Shri Govardhana Kapada Padapatale Kalindi Vanye Kuta. Goshantavita Sarvado Pare Kedar Mahavivalo Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako. So the Goswamis, they're praying like that. And so when we are chanting Hare Krishna, we should be praying like that too. Hare Krishna. Hey Radhe. Hare Krishna. Now, what's the reason for that? I mean, why not, or why should we not pray just to Krishna? And why do we put Radharani's name in? Well, there's a vast difference between Krishna's mercy, which is quite extensive. It's Hey Krishna Karana Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanda Namostute. We chant, Oh Krishna, Hey Krishna, Karana Sindhu. Krishna is a ocean of mercy. Jagat Pate, he's the Lord of the universe. Gopesha Gopika Kanta, you're Lord of Radharani. Radha Kanta Mostute. I offer my obeisances to you. So anyway, so Krishna is an ocean of mercy. So why do we have to put Radharani's name there? Other than the fact that we want to. And we are servants of Radharani. And the Guru is servant of Radharani. People keep sending me messages, but I have to keep checking since it's Radhastami. So the Guru is servant of Radharani. Well, the reason is that Radharani is, as Prabhupada said, the feminine counterpart of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now that's very interesting. The Absolute Truth is composed of male and female personalities. So that's interesting. And I explain this very often when I'm talking to people at the universities who just complain, they say, you religious people, you are just very much chauvinistic, male-oriented. And I said, no, we're not. In Krishna consciousness, we say that God has both female and male aspect, or the Absolute Truth has female and male aspect, and the female aspect comes first. And the reason we chant either Jai Radhe or Hey Radhe, Brajadevike, or for ourselves, Hare Krishna, is that we are crying out for Radharani, who is more merciful than Krishna. She's more merciful. She's soft-hearted. You do not find too many examples, I can't think of any examples, where Radharani pulls out a weapon and kills anyone. If you read Krishna's pastimes, Krishna has the chakra and the club. Of course, he also has nice things like the lotus and the conch. But Krishna has the chakra and the club, and this chakra and club are meant for Prityanaya Sadanam Vinashaya Chadushkritam, for annihilating the miscreants. But Radharani doesn't carry a chakra and a club. She gives her mercy out. Now, of course, if you take the expansion of the internal potency, ultimately, of Srimati Radharani, known as Durga, then you do have some weapons there. Durga is riding on a tigress, and she has a trident, Trishira, and she's inflicting upon the living entities in this material world adhyatmika, adibodhika, and adidaivic miseries. Miseries from the body and mind, miseries from other living entities, miseries from material energy in general. That's Durga. But Radharani, she is just compassionate. She wants these devotees to come back to Krishna because that would give Krishna pleasure. She's simply interested in giving Krishna pleasure, and what gives Krishna pleasure the most, of course, is Radharani's interactions with him, but also when the living entity comes out of this material world and rejoins Krishna in his eternal pastimes. Like we have the story of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, where someone is worshipping Durga, who's basically an expansion of Radharani in this material world, and because Durga is an expansion of Radharani wants to save this particular individual, who's a Brahmin, and Radharani says to this coward boy, now in the spiritual world we're in this coward boy's name is Sarupa, who used to be Gopakumar, says to this coward boy, one of my devotees is there in the material world. Please go and preach to him and save him. So Radharani sends one of the coward boys to the material world to preach Krishna consciousness. Really interesting. So, because Radharani is compassionate, the feminine counterpart of the Lord, the soft-hearted counterpart of the Lord. And of course, as I mentioned this morning, I mentioned many, many times, is when Krishna takes her mood, and that's known as he's known as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then the Lord actually becomes as compassionate as her. And what does he do? He starts the Sankirtan movement. Right. Of course, Lord Chaitanya has his esoteric reasons, or Krishna has his esoteric reasons for coming down as Lord Chaitanya. Esoteric reasons means basically he wants to understand Radharani's love, he wants to see himself from her perspective, he wants to enjoy as Radharani is enjoying, because Radharani, in one sense, sort of like the devotees, they enjoy more than the Supreme Lord enjoys. You can enjoy more by serving Krishna than by being Krishna. Interesting statement. So that's why we pray to Radharani, because she's so compassionate. Oh Radharani, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is, oh Radharani, Hare Krishna. Engage us in serving Krishna. In other words, allow us to assist you in serving Krishna. I mean, that's our prayer. Hare Krishna. So we should be crying out, like, Hey Radha, Hey Braja Devike. Crying out, oh Radha, allow us to assist you in serving Krishna, because we serve Krishna through Radharani. Of course, yes, I understand. The spiritual master, Lord Nityananda, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, and ultimately Radharani and Krishna. So this is, there's a hierarchy there. First, by serving the spiritual master, but that's all the members of that hierarchy are transparent in the sense that if you serve your spiritual master, you're serving Lord Nityananda, and if you're serving Lord Nityananda, you're serving Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and if you're serving Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you're serving the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, and if you're serving the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, then you're definitely serving Radha and Krishna. I mean, these are all non-different from one another. So we should understand that. Service to the Guru is service to Radha and Krishna. Hold on a second. Okay, service to the Guru is service to Radha and Krishna. People keep sending me messages. It's interesting. Normally the whole day they're not sending me messages, but now they keep sending me messages. Anyway, but I have to keep this on because we have a program at the temple. So that's the point. Hey Radhe Brajate Bike, Hey Nanda Shuno Kuta. So how do we worship Radharani at this point? How do we worship Radharani? We worship Radharani by serving her servants. And of course the Guru is her servant. Srila Prabhupada, who's everybody's Siksha Guru in the Krishna consciousness movement, is her servant. The 6 Goswamis are her servants. The members of the disciplic succession. So we serve her servants, and we try to bring people back to Krishna, because by this preaching or sharing, I know the word preaching is actually politically incorrect right now, by the sharing of Krishna consciousness, we are pleasing Radharani and bringing people back to Krishna. And Krishna, of course, says in the Bhagavad Gita, one who teaches this Bhagavad Gita to the devotees is most dear to me. No one will be more dear to me than the person who teaches this Bhagavad Gita. In other words, the person who brings people, let's take this in essence, who brings people to Krishna's lotus feet becomes most dear, because you're pleasing Srimati Radharani. Very, very interesting. So that's how we serve Radharani. Now, for those who are eternally residents of Vrindavan, or those who are on a very high platform, then there's some internal service going on, because as one progresses in Krishna consciousness, then one realizes one's Siddhadeha. Siddhadeha means one's spiritual body. Now, whether one is a servant of Krishna, whether one is a friend of Krishna, whether one is a parent of Krishna, whether one is in the conjugal ras in the spiritual world, you're all serving Radharani. It's all under Radharani's direction. So, ultimately, yes, we come to that platform, but not prematurely. But in the meantime, we serve Radharani in this world, and even when we come to that platform, where we can serve internally, we serve in this world too. We don't give that up. So, it's very important to understand the difference between Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. Vaidhi Bhakti is basically rules and regulations, which we follow. There's yam and niyam. There's restrictions, like 4 regulated principles, and there's positive injunctions you have to chant. 64 rounds, not 64, that would be nice. You have to chant 16 rounds every day. And these are positive injunctions, or offer your food to Krishna, do this, do that. There's certain rules and regulations. We don't want to get too complex with the rules and regulations, but there are certain rules and regulations. So one follows these rules and regulations out of faith, even though one may not have full realization at this particular time. And then, when one comes to the platform of nishta means steadiness in the rules and regulations, and then one gets ruchi, or taste, then one automatically follows the rules and regulations. One doesn't give them up, because one has a taste for them. And then when one has a taste for following these rules and regulations, then at that point is gradually revealed through either the instructions of the spiritual master, or revelation, or talking to advanced Vaishnavas, what your spiritual identity is. Then you have your internal service to Srimati Radharani. And that internal service is done with a mood of reverence towards Srimati Radharani. Reverence. Srimati Radharani is always worshipable to a devotee, internally and, of course, externally. And that's why Srila Prabhupada emphasized that on Radhastami, and also other days like Gopastami, we don't show Radharani's feet, because it's very reverential. Of course, with Krishna, we show his feet. We understand that, because that's part of the vidi, or the rules and regulations. You're supposed to see Krishna's feet. We're servants of Krishna. But Radharani, service to Radharani, or understanding Radharani, is so exalted, we have to be very, very careful in approaching Srimati Radharani. So anyway, so as far as one other point before I do some reading from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's poem about Radharani, and something I mentioned this morning, is that some people say, why doesn't Shukadeva Goswami mention the name of Radharani in the Srimad Bhagavatam? Well, he does mention the name of Radharani, but in sort of like an indirect, hidden way. And the reason is that Shukadeva Goswami is the eternal associate of Srimati Radharani, sometimes described that he is an incarnation of the parrot of Srimati Radharani. So if he says her name, then he would be in such ecstasy, or he would have been in such ecstasy, that he would not have been able to continue or finish the Srimad Bhagavatam recital, which he was doing for Maharaj Parikshit, who only had 7 days. So we find that with devotees who are pure, that sometimes there's these uncontrollable ecstasies. This is known as Sanchari Bhava. Sanchari means it moves throughout the whole body. It takes over even your physical external body. It takes over your whole body, so you don't have control of your body anymore. You just go into trance. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, he's God, but he exhibited this when he first went to the temple of Jagannath, in Jagannath Puri, of course, and he fainted. He lost consciousness, and basically it appeared like he had left his body, except there was a little breath coming from his nostrils, which is detected by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who put a cotton swab next to his nostrils. So, yes, this happens. And then later on, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was brought back to external consciousness when the devotees chanted the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and joined him in Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house. So, therefore, Shukadeva Goswami doesn't directly say Radharani, although he says it pretty directly in Srimad Bhagavatam, the 10th canto, 30th chapter, text 28. There's the verse. Ana yara dito dunam Bhagavan Haririshvara Yano Vihaya Govinda Prito Yam Aniyad Raha. And the translation is, certainly this particular gopi has perfectly worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead Govinda. Since he was so pleased with her, they abandoned the rest of us and brought her to a secluded place. So this Ana Yara Dito actually obviously refers to Radharani, and means she who is worshipping Krishna without any other desires. So, of course, in this particular verse, it appears like the other gopis are envious of Radharani, but really they are happy by seeing how devoted she is. So this is actually the secret mention of Radharani's name, which is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So anyway, let me read more quotes by Prabhupada about Radharani. Prabhupada says that, these are just, I'm taking excerpts from the quotes, because a lot of it is things that I said before. Therefore, the mercy of Radharani is readily available to sincere devotees, and once she recommends such a devotee to Krishna, the Lord at once accepts the devotee's admittance into his association. That's from 2.3.23 in the Bhagavatam purport. One who is attracted by the beauty of Radha and Krishna cannot be attracted by the false beauty of this material world. If one takes shelter Vrindavan under Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radharani, certainly all the problems of his life are solved very easily. If a devotee approaches Srimati Radharani to offer some service to Krishna, even Srimati Radharani thinks that the devotee is greater than she. The Ladini Shakti, that's Radharani, the pleasure potency, is manifested as Radharani, but Krishna and Radharani are the same, although one is potent, the other is potency. And here's a quote from the Radha Rasa Shuddhanidhi by Prabhupada Saraswati. Radha's control of Krishna as Madan Mohan Mohini, who with the arrow of your sidelong glance deeply wound Braja's prince, making his peacock feather fall from his turban, the flute fall from his hand, and his yellow garments become disarrayed. So Krishna becomes bewildered. For example, Krishna is called Madan Mohan, which means Krishna who actually bewilders or attracts Cupid, Madan. And so Radharani is not known as Madan Mohan Mohini, she who attracts the person who attracts Cupid. So it's really interesting. If we worship Krishna, we can become free from our attraction to the Cupid of this material world. But Krishna himself is attracted, even though he's not attracted to the Cupid, and his devotees are not attracted to Cupid. Krishna himself is attracted and bewildered by Srimati Radharani, and bewildered so much that sometimes when she gets angry with him for his pleasure, he has to bow down, even though he's God, he has to bow down at Radharani's feet to ask for forgiveness. Wow. Anyway, just maybe one more quote from Prabhupada, if that's all right. Let's see. The loving affairs of this from the Adi Leela of Shri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestations of the Lord's internal pleasure, giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, they separated themselves eternally. Now these two transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself, which is what I spoke about before. Also, if you really want to know, I guess I should read some of these verses. Her mood, I'm going to leave out the Sanskrit. This is from the Anjalila, just 2 or 3 verses, because I really wanted to read some of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's poems about Srimati Radharani. So, in the Anjalila 20:47, I'm not going to recite the Sanskrit, the famous verse, the last verse of the Shikshashtaka. Let Krishna tightly embrace this maidservant who has fallen at his lotus feet. This is Radharani talking, or Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talking, in the mood of Radharani, to illustrate her mood in relationship to Krishna. Let Krishna tightly embrace this maidservant who has fallen at his lotus feet, or let him trample me or break my heart by not being visible to me. He is a debauchee after all and can do whatever he likes, but he is still no one other than the worshipful Lord of my heart. I am a maidservant at the lotus feet of Krishna. He is the embodiment of transcendental happiness and malice. If he like, he can tightly embrace me and make me feel oneness with him, or by not giving me his audience he may corrode my mind and body. Nevertheless, it is he who is the Lord of my life. My dear friend, just hear the decision of my mind. Krishna is the Lord of my life in all conditions, whether he shows me affection or kills me by giving me unhappiness. Sometimes Krishna gives up the company of other gopis and becomes controlled, mind and body, by me. Thus he manifests my good fortune and gives others distress by performing his loving affairs with me. Or since he is a very cunning, obstinate devotee with a propensity to cheat, he takes to the company of other women. He then indulges in loving affairs with them in front of me to give distress to my mind. Nevertheless, he is still the Lord of my life. I do not mind my personal distress. I only wish for the happiness of Krishna, for his happiness is the goal of my life. However, if he feels great happiness in giving me distress, that distress is the best of my happiness. Wow. So there's actually quite a few quotes, and I advise the devotees, just let me read text 61. These statements by Srimati Radharani show the symptoms of pure love for Krishna tasted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that ecstatic love his mind was unsteady. Transformations of transcendental love spread throughout his entire body as Sanchari Baba, and he could not sustain his body and mind. So I advise the devotees to read from the 20th chapter of the Ancha Lila, which contains Prabhupada's really esoteric or deep translations of the Shikshashtika verses in relationship between Radha and Krishna. So that's my humble request. And finally, because I don't want to go too long, I'm going to have to go to the temple, at least do part of the Abhishek. I definitely want to do that, even though I'm not feeling that well. Finally, I'm just going to read a few verses from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who wrote 8 songs called the Radhastami, and we're not going to be able to read them all, but I'll try to read a few lines, and then somehow or other, maybe tomorrow we can share more of these. So, song 1. How can a person who in this life did not earnestly worship Shri Radha's lotus feet, the abodes of all auspiciousness, did not take shelter of Shri Radha's lotus abode, which bears the name Vrindavan, and did not associate with the great souls who deeply love Radha, joyfully bathe in the nectar ocean of love for Lord Krishna, know this with a single heart. Shri Radha is the teacher of Ujjvala Rasa. Ujjvala means a conjugal relationship. Rasa means a taste from the conjugal relationship. Now we will consider the topic of pure love for Shri Krishna. Anyone who earnestly takes shelter of Shri Radha's feet will attain the priceless jewel that is Lord Krishna's feet. Without first taking shelter of Shri Radha's feet, one will never meet Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is the property of Shri Radha's maidservants. This all the Vedas say. Renouncing wealth, followers, wife, children, and friends, turning away from karma and jnana, Bhaktivinoda vows to dedicate his life to the sweet service of Shri Radha's lotus feet. On the farther shore of the Viraja River divides the material world from the spiritual world, is the pure spiritual sky, and above that sky is the world named Shri Gokula Vrindavana. Vrindavan is made of Chintamani jewels. It is filled with the jewels of spiritual bliss. Everything there is spiritual. It is very wonderful to see. In the middle of that abode is wonderful Krishna, who is like a glorious sapphire tamal tree. On that tree grows a most effulgent and pure golden vine, a vine that is the Lord's Ladini Shakti, pleasure potency, a vine that bears the name Mahabhava, that's great ecstasy of love, a vine that charms the person who charms the 3 worlds. Of course, that's Radharani. So Radharani is described here as a vine that grows around the tamal tree, and of course the tamal tree represents Krishna, and that vine represents the greatest ecstasy of love. Also known by the name Radha, that vine joyfully pleases Lord Krishna's heart. That vine's flowers and leaves, which are Lalita and the other gopis, tightly embrace that tree. Touched by the vine, the tamal tree bears flowers. Wow. Just think of this poetic metaphor. That Lalita and the gopis are actually uh, the vines, flowers, and leaves, and they tightly embrace the tree, and the other gopis too. And that tamal tree, that is Krishna, touched by Radharani, bears flowers. Not for a moment will that vine ever leave. That vine never desires to leave the tamal tree. The vine always prays to stay with that tree. Bhaktivinoda desires to meet that divine couple. Hold on a second. No, I don't have to get that. He does not desire anything else. And we'll finish with this third song. King Vrishabhanu's daughter is the crest jewel of all beautiful girls. Dressed in blue garments. She's dressed in blue garments because that's the color of Krishna. Her braids gracefully tied. And her fair complexion, concrete and molten gold. That's why she's called as Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi. I mean, she's golden. And Lord Chaitanya is Gauranga. She is Lord Krishna's life. Gracefully decorated with ornaments. Her forehead graceful with tilak, her jeweled breast gracefully covered by a bodice, and her eyes gracefully decorated with mascara. She is delightful and charming like nectar. Renouncing everything, I will become a maidservant and earnestly worship Shri Radha's feet. Gazing at the splendor of Radha's beauty, Rati, Gauri, and Leela find all their pride taken away. At Radha's feet, the good fortune of Sachi, Lakshmi, and Satya are defeated. Competing with Radha to conquer Krishna, Chandravali and her friends are defeated. Chandravali, of course, is an expansion of Srimati Radharani, who Radharani expands as to create, I guess you call it a foil, so that there's some ecstasy in the relationship. You know, there's some opposition in the relationship, and that way you actually get the taste, different tastes, like the taste of anger and the taste of jealousy and everything like that, because that's all enjoyable in loving exchanges in the spiritual world. The material world, these tastes are not that enjoyable. Bhaktivinoda lives at Sri Godruma, strives to attain Radha's feet, which are so dear to Lord Krishna. And let me finish with song 4. Just want to let 3 or 4 minutes for questions. Shri Radha is the crest jewel of all amorous girls, expert in tasting nectar. She is a graceful swan in the lake of pure love for Lord Krishna. She is a pure kalpalata vine grown from King Vrishabhanu. All the goddesses of fortune are parts of her. On her hips, a red silk garment and small tinkling bells, and over her breasts a necklace of pearls. Beautiful Radha charms Lord Krishna's heart. She is splendidly beautiful, like the whorl of the most graceful lotus flower. On her smiling lips are the nectar of youth's beginning and the camphor of youth's fullness. Seeing him come from the forest edge, she worshipped Braja's prince with many prayers, spoken by the anxious, restless, mischievous, crooked glances from the corners of her eyes. She is the life of Braja's women and the object of Yashoda's affection. Because of graceful Lalita's love, every limb on her body blossoms with perfect beauty and grace. Accompanied by Vishaka, she picks the forest flowers and makes it by Jayanti garland. The best and most dear of all the gopis, she rests on Lord Krishna's chest. Hearing the sweet sound of the flute, she runs into the forest and finds Krishna, the best of dancers. Her smiling and her head shyly lowered, she scratches her ear. Touching the lotus flowers, a breeze cools her lake in the hot summer. Accompanied by her friends, she there pleases Gokula's hero. Grasping their feet, Bhaktivinoda says to Srila Rupa Goswami and Sri Raghunath Goswami, "When will you kindly give me direct service to Shri Radha, service that is the great treasure sought by the saints?" Okay, so I'm going to want to take some questions, and because I do want to do the Abhishek at the temple, which is going to occur shortly. So if anybody, hold on a second. If anybody has any quick questions and not too esoteric, please.
Please accept my humble obeisance.
Okay, so quick, Rakesh.
You say we can't see the feet of Srimati Radharani, like we should not show it. Is it also applicable to the Ast Sakhis?
The Sakis can certainly see the feet of Radharani. We're talking about conditioned souls within this material world who are on the Vaidhi platform. I mean, obviously, if you're doing deity worship, you see the deities.
My question was like, am I allowed to see the feet of the Ast Sakhis or not?
Where are you seeing the Astasakis?
Sometime in the photos, like
Oh
it
yeah,
comes
yeah,
on.
yeah. That's a photo. That's fine. We should pray like that. But I'm talking about the formal deity worship in the temple. And that was Prabhupada's
Oh,
instruction. Although not all temples followed Prabhupada's instruction, what can you do? But there was actually a lot of research done about Srila Prabhupada's instructions in that regard, and that was the conclusion. Okay, so else what? Who else wants to ask a question? If not,
I have another question, Gurudev. Okay,
that's okay.
Gopal.
That's fine. You were asking a lot of questions. So, uh,
This is my obeisance, Srila Gurudev.
you asked a question.
In the Radhastami song that you sang in the beginning of class, it specifically mentions the four Kumars, and not any other sages, but specifically mentions them. Is there any pastime or something where that specifies that the four Kumars are glorifying Radharani or
Well, it doesn't say it doesn't talk about their pastime with the four Kumars. It says that they describe the characteristics. That's there in the Puranas. There's some description by the four Kumars.
you know which Purana?
No,
Thank you, Gurudev.
not know which Purana, but there are descriptions by the four Kumars. That's it. It doesn't establish, and the four Kumars are not established in the Madhurya Ras, but they're describing the glories of Srimati Radharani. Generally, the four Kumars are described as being in Shanta Ras devotees. So, who else has a question? If not, we encourage everybody to celebrate. Of course, I don't know if in Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji today is Radhastami, or yesterday was probably Radhastami in Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji. So, but anyway, we wish everybody a happy Radhastami. Sumok, you have a question? Oh,
Today is Radhastami in Fiji.
it is Radhastami today?
Today.
Okay,
Yes, yes,
so
Gurudev.
please wish all the devotees in Fiji happy Radhastami for me, and
I'll do that, Gurudev.
tell them I'll be visiting as soon as I can. What, Sydney had a different day of Radhastami? That's interesting. Sydney had a different day, and but today is Sunday in.
Fiji.
Yeah, so anyway, whatever. Happy Radhastami, and just give all the devotees my blessings. I'll be there as soon as Krishna wants me to go. We have to recuperate first. So, thank you very much. All glories to Srimati Radharani. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, Radhastami, Ki Jai. Haribol. Oops.